Amie, let's go. Alrighty. She's going to talk about detoxification, reducing inflammation, and resetting your body. After getting a set of life-changing diagnoses early in her professional career, Amie was forced to change the way she lived, ate, and made a living. Wanting to immerse herself in a healing lifestyle, Amie Valpone became a culinary nutritionist, professional recipe developer, food photographer, celebrity chef, and writer specializing in clean eating recipes. She is the creator of the very popular blog, thehealthyapple.com. She resides in New York City, and she's down here visiting us for the day. Amie has received nutrition certifications from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, Columbia University. She recently published a beautiful recipe book called Eating Clean, the 21-day plan to detox and fight inflammation and reset your body. Today, her sole desire is to help you and your body feel as amazing as possible through various simple yet life-altering changes to your nutrition and lifestyle habits. Please join me in welcoming Amie Valpone.
Thank you. Hi, how is everybody? Good? Are you ready to wake up a little bit? Because I know it's the end of the day and you're all probably a little tired and ready to get home, right? Yes? No? Okay. So thank you, Robin, wherever you went. Thank you. So I'm Amie. I'm the author of Eating Clean, which just came out in March. Just a side note before I start, we have a few books the ladies ordered over on the side, so I'm going to do a book signing after the talk, if anyone is interested. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, why I'm up here, and then I'm going to take some questions because it will be a lot of information that I'm sharing with you. So feel free to save your questions. We'll save about 15 minutes at the end so anyone can ask. And as you'll see, I'm very vulnerable in talking about my story, so you can ask personal questions or anything. I'm an open book. Okay, so 10 years ago, I was working at Vogue magazine, and I thought I was hot shit. And I was like trying to climb the corporate ladder. And I was about 90 pounds, and I couldn't gain weight. And at the time, I was like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm just one of these thin girls. Like, it's all good. And then I was like sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden, my legs started swelling with water. And I was like, this is really weird. Like, what's going on? So I went to bed, woke up the next day, and I was like, my 90-pound self. And I'd go to work, and then 3 o'clock, my legs would start swelling. And I mean, like, swelling, like my skirts would burst, like the seams would burst. And so I started to weigh myself at the end of the day because my roommate at the time had a scale, and I was 130 pounds. 130 pounds at the end of the day, 90 in the morning. So 40 pounds of fluid in my legs. I could like feel it coming on. It was the weirdest thing. So I was like, I know I'm not nuts, so I'm going to go to the emergency room. So after a week of it, my sister took me, and we just like walked down to the emergency room. And they were like, let's just take your blood and let's see what's going on. So they took my blood. And they were like, they come in and, the emergency room, they're nuts. And they're like, your white blood cells are like 1.1. You should be dead right now. And I was like, lady, I'm totally fine. Like, I'm a bouncing ball of energy. It's all good. I'll go to like my GP tomorrow. And she's like, okay, fine. Take these blood results and go to your doctor. So the next day I wake up, I go to work. And I called my regular GP, went to him, got blood work done. Meanwhile, they're like, cut out the salt, you're probably drinking too much water, you're probably eating too much salt, all the things that they think was going on. And so he took my blood work, and I went back to my office, and he called me the next day. I was sitting there eating lunch, and he said, you need to get up right now and go to this doctor's office downtown. And I was like, I work at Vogue. You get like 5 minutes to like eat, drink, pee, and like even do anything all day long. So I was like, I'll go like next week, I'm fine, I'm feeling good, it's just this weird water. And he's like, no, you need to get up now and go. So I left my lunch at my desk, I get up, I jump on the subway, I went downtown, and I look at the address, and I get there, and it's like St. Vincent's Cancer Center. And I was like, what? This is so weird. So I was like, hi, you sent me to a cancer center. And he's like, no, we think you have leukemia, you need to go inside. And so my life has never been the same since that moment. They literally took my insurance card, bent me over, gave me a bone marrow biopsy, and sent me on my way. And turns out I did not have leukemia, but for the next 4 years, I spent every other week getting 20 to 30 vials of blood drawn from my arm at the cancer hospital, where they told me I was anorexic, bulimic, crazy, and everything else. I'm sure a lot of you have kind of been in similar situations. And so I knew I wasn't crazy. And they came to me one day after I'd done my blood work, and they said, Miss Valpone, there's nothing else that we can do for you. You need to go to Mayo Clinic. So I got on the plane with my mother and my aunt, and the only way they got me out there is the Mall of America is out there. So I was like, well, I can do some shopping. And so I ended up going to Mayo Clinic. I spent an entire week there, a whole other bone marrow biopsy, and they came to me again on Friday afternoon after a whole week's workup with paper this, like a stack this big. And they said, we're sorry, there literally is nothing wrong with you. You need to go home. Now, I had CAT scans, MRIs, I mean, you name it, they ran it. Every DNA test, everything. They couldn't find anything. So I was sent home. And so I sat there with myself, and I was like, this is insane. No one can figure out what's going on with me. Like, I'm going to figure this out. So I ended up going to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, trying to understand, maybe it has something to do with my food, but I usually eat healthy, so maybe that could be something, put the pieces of the puzzle together. So I started eating a little cleaner, learning about how the body works, and all of a sudden, I started to get a lot of pain in my body. And so I was rushed to the hospital for special surgery, which was right around the street from me, and they put me on steroids. And then my gut pretty much just stopped working, so they put me on about 4 antibiotics. And then my tongue turned black, and I got hairy tongue, which means you have mold and heavy metals in your gut. And so that's just a little bit of my story. But to say the least, I ended up on the floor of my parents' house, literally just a mess. And I said to myself, I can't do this. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And so the very next morning, I had chronic pain in my stomach. And my mother said, you're not going back to the city. I'm taking you to the hospital. So we had exhausted all the hospitals, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So she took me down to Philadelphia to Thomas Jefferson. And I went in, I could barely stand up, and they said, you literally have 24 hours to live, you have C. diff colitis. And so I was insanely contagious, so my parents were in gowns, it was like something out of a movie. But as I laid there with morphine in my arm, and I said to myself, if I make it, and if I survive, I'm gonna dedicate the rest of my life to figuring this out and helping other people realize that we are not crazy, that something is going on and no one is listening to us, and that there is something more to the body than just putting drugs to mask these symptoms. And so I survived because I'm here today. And thank you. And so I really started to dive more into learning about the body. And I had to say, wait a minute, there's more to this, as I was saying earlier. And I discovered something called functional and integrative medicine. Does anyone know? Does anyone not know? Good. Does anyone not know what functional integrative medicine is? Raise your hands. Okay, so we're going to talk about it. So let's say my father's name's Tony. So say Tony walks into a regular Western medicine doctor's office, and the doctor's like, Tony, you have high cholesterol. Here's Lipitor. Have a great day. I'll see you for your yearly checkup in a year. End of story. Now, a functional or integrative medicine doctor, Tony walks in, and he's like, the doctor's like, hey, Tony, you have high cholesterol. What are you eating? What are you drinking? How much are you sleeping? Do you have love in your life? How's your stress? What's going on here? The toxins in your home, are you eating organic? All of this stuff. And so I went to one of these doctors, and I was used to you're in and you're out, here's a prescription, whatever. I went to one of these doctors. 3 hours later, the lady's asking me what kind of pipes I had in my home when I was a kid. And I was like, my father came with me. And my father's like, what is this? This is like a bunch of, craziness. He didn't believe any of it. And so she took me off all the drugs that I was on. And she said, this is crazy. The steroids are killing your adrenals. And the antibiotics are messing up your gut. Things that no one ever told me. I mean, when I was in my early 20s and I would get a cold, I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go to the doctor and get an antibiotic so that I can get this to go away. Right? We spend our whole lives just pushing things away, right? Or we're trying to work out so much to get rid of our bodies, right? We're trying to just we're not trying to look at anything, we're just trying to push it away because none of us are ever taught how this works, right? I mean, I laid there when I was 22 years old and I was like, I have no idea how my body works. No one ever taught me how to take care of myself in school. And so after a few tests, what this functional integrative medicine doctor found was everything from hypothyroidism to leaky gut to chronic candida to heavy metals off the chart to mold that was off the chart to parasites and pathogens and you name it, I pretty much had it. I mean, I could go on and on and on, fibromyalgia, you name it. And so what I had to do is ask myself, where did all of this come from? And it was interesting, the word she said to me, she said, you need a detox. And I said, oh, I know all about that. I work at Vogue. We talk about detoxes all the time. And so I didn't even know what I was talking about because, by the way, every magazine, is always talking about, detox, detox. And she's like, no, that's not detox. That's a cleanse. We're talking about detox. So detox is totally different from a cleanse. Okay, I've never done a cleanse in my life, and I won't because I would die if I didn't eat for about 6 hours. But the point is, detox is about getting the bad stuff out and putting the good stuff in. So the easiest way to detox, number one, eating organic. Why? Because when you don't, you're pumping in growth hormones, antibiotics, pesticides, and herbicides. And guess who has to deal with all of that? Your liver. And then at the end of the day, you're having a drink, and then you're inhaling cigarette smoke from somebody else, and then there's car exhaust, and then you're drinking your tap water, which is full of all these chemicals, and then you're brushing your teeth with toothpaste that's full of all these chemicals, and rinsing out your mouth, which is full of formaldehyde in some of these mouthwashes, and then you're using plastic to cover your food, right, your sandwich every day. And so all of these chemicals and toxins start to build up. And some of us are more sensitive than others. I was hypersensitive, and that's why my body literally was about to burst and was bursting by my legs. And so there's something called MTHFR. Has anyone ever heard of it? Oh, this is great. Okay, so it's methylation. It's how you detox. So my father, his name's Tony Valpone. The guy can eat like rocks, and he's totally fine. I, on the other hand, can have like a crumb of gluten, and I'm like in the hospital with an IV in my arm. We're totally different, which made my healing journey very difficult because he never understood anything. But the point is that some people, like myself, are missing one of these genes. So MTHFR is like how you're detoxing, how you're methylating. So my father and I could both, my father does not have the gene. I got it from my mother. So the point is, my father and I could both eat the same conventional apple, which is non-organic, right? It's got pesticides, herbicides, all that good yum stuff in there. So he eats it, he's fine. He pees it out, he urinates it out, it comes out in his feces. I, on the other hand, cannot detox it. So guess what happens to all those toxins that I just named? Guess what? They start building and building, and all the other stuff that I was talking about starts building and building and building until you become toxic. And then you go to a doctor and you say, I've got this really bad muscle pain, or I've had these stomach issues. And they're like, oh, don't worry, here's a pill, take this. Because they have no idea what's going on in your body. Really, you're toxic, but no one talks about that, right? We're run by these pharmaceutical companies and these advertisements that, I don't know, I mean, I don't watch TV or read the newspaper because it's too much trauma for me anymore, but I was just listening to Pandora Radio the other day, which I thought was totally safe, and the commercials are like, do you have back pain? You have philia, right? It's like they try to scare you with these things and tell you need, like, here's this drug or here's this advertisement, and it's like, this is crazy, right? Does anyone know what I mean? Yeah, and it's like, oh, are we being brainwashed? This is insane. So what it comes down to is that your body is toxic, and it's not a scary thing. We cannot live in a bubble. I live in Manhattan, and everyone's like, how do you do that? You belong in Boulder. But you know what? I went to Boulder for the first time this summer, and I was like, now I know what everybody's talking about. I spent 3 hours in Whole Foods Market. I was like, they have literally 70 different kinds of just almond milk. I was like, they were like, lady, are you okay? It was really funny. I was like, this is so cool. But anyway, so it really comes down to being toxic. And so I spent 4 straight years. I was on disability, ended up quitting my job, which at the time I thought was crazy, but it was now a blessing in disguise. But I spent 4 years detoxing my body, probably the 4 hardest years of my life. I don't want to say so far because hopefully it was the 4 hardest that I'll ever have to deal with. But I had to learn, how to detox. Now, I went to about 10 different functional medicine doctors because what I learned is that a lot of these functional medicine doctors specialize in one thing. So I went to, I list them all in my book, but I went to a woman, Susan Blum, up in Westchester, New York, for my thyroid. Then I went to someone, Jeffrey Morrison, who did chelation for me, which is IV chelation to pull the heavy metals out of my body. I had to go to someone else for my Lyme disease, which I didn't mention earlier, which was false negatives for, they think, about 15 years. Because when you look at my blood, I was kind of like psycho hardcore because when all this started happening, I said, Mom, go to my doctor when I was like 5, 6 years old and get my blood work. And I made my parents do all these different things. And so my mother brings the blood work back, and I just lost it because when I was 7 years old, my white blood cells were 1.2 and no one caught it. 7. Meaning I probably got maybe bit by a tick or something was going on with my immune system when I was a kid, but No one ever found it, and here I was 22 and like near death. And so you can imagine all those years. And I'm like everyone else, I wanted a quick fix, right? And there is no quick fix, I hate to tell you. But what happened to me was I was put on all these supplements and protein powders and all these different things, which were amazing for me at the time and helped me so much. But what I started to learn is that I was like spending my days taking 70 supplements a day. Can anyone relate to this? Anyone that's gone through chronic illness? Yeah, and you feel like you're just like a slave to all these different things. And I had to say, this is crazy. I need to figure out, my body should be doing this on its own. And so that's when I had to learn to go to the next level. So something like an Epsom salt bath, which is probably the cheapest thing you will ever do, is the best way to detox. Why? Because your skin is your biggest organ. No one thinks about it. So guess what? All the makeup that you put on, all the toothpaste that you wash with, the Lubriderm lotion, the Neutrogena sunscreen, everything, it's full of toxic chemicals. And guess what happens to those? They get absorbed, and guess what has to deal with them? Your liver. And so in my book, I broke down all the chemicals and all the different things and what to avoid. And I mean, women alone, just our makeup. I mean, I was using Giorgio Armani lipstick in college. My lead was through the roof. Later, I found out that Giorgio Armani's makeup is full of lead. So it's like you think you're doing good by going to these like gorgeous like Neiman Marcus stores and buying this like really high brand lipstick, right? Because it's just all advertising. But really, it's even worse than these Walmart brands. And I'm like, this is crazy. No one educated me. I mean, even our dish soap and the stuff that we clean our homes with, the Tilex or the Windex, all these things, you touch it, whether you touch the actual bottle or you spray your countertop and 2 days later you touch it, and then it's still going into your skin. And it's funny, I use this example a lot when I'm trying to talk about pesticides and herbicides with people, because people are like, oh, I just clean off my vegetables. And I was like, that was me in my 20s, because I'd be out in the Hamptons being like, oh, these rich people out here can buy this like $30 lettuce that's organic, that's crazy, and the same exact lettuce is over here for $1. Like, why the heck would you? I didn't even get it. And I know there's still so many of my clients and readers that, aren't there yet. But one day the light bulb went on when I went out to a farm in California for Earthbound Farm, and they were talking about what happens on non-organic conventional farms. And really, these guys say it's an apple tree, right? They're going around, they're spraying the apples with the herbicides, the pesticides, all those delicious chemicals. And what happens is it's on the outside of the fruit. So everyone thinks they can just go home, wash off the apple, dust off the apple, and then, well, guess what? No, because it rains. And what happens when it rains? It goes into the roots. And guess what happens? In the roots bring up the pesticides and herbicides. And so it's in the actual food. And so when I heard this, I went 100% organic and have not turned back. It probably was the most expensive thing I ever had to do, but I saw changes. Number one, right away with my liver enzymes and the rest of my health. It sounds crazy, even like the circles under my eyes, everything, because you're lessening the body burden on your liver every day. So that's really the name of the game here. And we're all bombarded by everything from emails to like your in-laws to your kids to, everything every day. Our lives are crazy. But if you think about it, you've got to make time, which is so hard to do, I know, to take care of yourself. Right? And to stop giving your power away to doctors who are wonderful and will save your life if you break your arm or if you get in a car accident or if you have C. diff colitis. But a lot of these Western doctors don't understand the body. And so for so many years, I was so angry because I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my health, and I was just told all these lies. And I was like, this is insane. How many other people are out there suffering, right? And so I had to kind of release that anger, which was so hard to do. I learned how to meditate, which was really, really, really hard. But it has helped me tremendously, let me tell you. If I can meditate in Manhattan, anybody can meditate. And so I had to release that because I was like, this is crazy. I'm just going to start to work with these functional medicine doctors and these energy workers, things like acupuncture, right, and Reiki and body work. Our bodies need touch. Right, we wake up in the morning and we shove food in our mouth, and then we're dropping off the kids, we're running to work, or our emails are coming in, we're all on our phones, social media is blowing up. We get home at the end of the day, we're starving, we're tired, we throw food on the table, and we do it again and again and again. It's like, this is not healthy. So what I started to realize is you can eat all the kale in the world and still not get better, because this is where I was 3 years ago. I was like doing everything perfect. I was like the perfect patient. And I hit rock bottom, because you're going to pretty much fall out of your chair when I tell you what happened to me. So 2 days after I handed the manuscript in for this book, meaning like you cannot change anything else, it's going to print, done. 2 days later, my doctor overdosed me on progesterone cream, and I gained 70 pounds in 5 days. My hair went from blonde to brown, and my whole endocrine system shut down. That's book number 2, by the way. Just wait. Oh, it's going to be good. And so I probably still don't look like the picture that's on the cover, but it's coming off. It's been, January will be 2 years, but I'll tell you, I've learned for the first time in my life why this happened, because when it happened, I said, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, but now I'm like, oh no. I learned how to love myself, because when you go from a 0 to a 10 in 5 days, when you go from 100 to 170 in 5 days, when you're on national TV and you don't even look like yourself, when you're like going on dates and living in New York City, you're like, holy cow, but I realized this happened to me to understand women and hormones. A lot of my clients would come to me and say, oh, I'm gaining weight, I don't know why, I'm eating so clean, I'm working out, and they were still gaining weight, and I never really believed them. I was like, they're probably eating cookies later in the day, whatever. Now I realize it's all hormonal, right? I eat the cleanest diet out of anyone, and it's still like, it's fluid, it's on your body, so it's hormonal. And so I had to learn how to heal my endocrine system, which, let me tell you, is incredibly hard. Hormones, I think someone said to me the other day, hormones, if you put all your hormones together, it like fits in like an olive or something throughout your life, something like that. And it's like this tiny little thing, but you don't realize how powerful they are. Any woman with PMS understands, right? And so I thought PMS was normal. I thought we were all just supposed to, that's why they make Midol, that's why they make Advil, that's why they make all these things. They advertise to us that just cover up your symptoms and take this pill and you'll be fine. You're supposed to be getting these symptoms. And until this happened to me, I was like, oh no, this is not supposed to be happening. And when I started doing all this energy work and working with these integrative and functional medicine doctors, they're like, no, if you have PMS, or if you're having some symptoms hormonally, your symptoms are out of balance, or your hormones are out of balance, and something is off. And so that's when I went into like this deep dive of understanding the body even more on like an energetic level. And so I always laughed at people when they told me to meditate or to like calm down my life, because you can tell I'm like type A, like doing a million things at once. But I've had to learn how to like slow down. And what people always said in every book I ever read was like, meditate and like take things off your calendar. And I was always like, lady, like you don't get it. Like I live in New York, my life is nuts, I don't want to slow down. But you want to know what no one talks about? It's our nervous system. Jeez, I'm sorry. It's our nervous system. And our nervous systems are shot. So all the kale in the world and all the supplements in the world and all the protein powders and eating organic and doing all this like mind-body retreat stuff, that's all great. But your body is still in fight or flight mode. So none of that is going to really help. It's probably going to make you feel a little bit better, but it's not going to get, you're not going to get to the root cause. And so you have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I'm sure everyone in here is in the sympathetic mode. It's fight or flight, right? So if you think about our ancestors who were like running from like the saber-toothed tigers years and years and years ago, they literally were in this fight or flight mode, right? Because you want to get the heck out of the way from the tiger. But when you outrun the tiger, your body would relax. Or when the zebra is being chased by the tiger, and the zebra's in this fight or flight mode, and it's like running, and then it outruns the tiger, it switches back into its rest and relaxation mode. But guess what? Humans don't do that. And guess what? We don't have tigers chasing us, but you want to know what we have chasing us? Social media and emails and your in-laws and everything that you're supposed to be doing because your friends are doing it on Facebook, and it's constantly, if you literally start to just put your hands on your, sorry guys, if you just put your hands on your body throughout the day and you realize all this stuff coming to me, just the fact when you get like, you go into work and you're like, you have 600 new emails. You're like, great, I can't wait. You get nothing done on your to-do list, and you feel yourself, and what are you doing? You're breathing from your chest. Guess what? Look at a baby when they come out of the mother. And for the first few weeks, maybe months, they're breathing from their belly, right? Which is your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what we're all supposed to be doing. But everybody put their hand on their belly right now, because I bet no one's breathing from their belly. We're all breathing from our chest. Whoa, that got really loud, right? Sorry. So what's interesting is I caught myself the other day. I did a TV segment for Fox, and I don't get nervous on TV. It's like one of my favorite things to do, but I caught myself right away breathing from here, and I was like, whoa, that's so interesting. So when you're just a little bit more mindful of where you're breathing from, everything starts to shift. Does that make sense? So what I had to start to do was put into my cute little Google Calendar, check your tummy, are you breathing from your belly? And so that's what I had to start doing, putting my hand over my stomach like 3 to 4 times a day to make sure I was doing that. Because like I said, no one's talking about the nervous system. And if your nervous system is in this fight or flight mode, all the kale, all the supplements, all this stuff isn't going to do anything. And it took me 7 years of even functional medicine and all these other things to get to that point. And it took me to gain 70 pounds in 5 days and have this progesterone toxicity and this huge identity crisis to realize, holy cow, there's more to all of this than just supplements and different things. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. So when we talk a little bit about inflammation, we talk about, there's certain things that people say, you want to get rid of inflammation, but inflammation, a little bit of inflammation is good because when you cut your finger, when you burn your finger on the stove, you want your finger to turn red and for the scab to form, right? That's good inflammation. But what happens is when your immune system gets out of whack from things like sugar and all these refined oils and stress and all these processed foods that our bodies cannot identify, your immune system is completely out of whack. And so what starts to happen is you're starting to eat these foods like gluten or dairy or soy, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm bloated, I look like I'm pregnant, or all of a sudden all these different things start to affect you. You get seasonal allergies, all these little things start to creep up. Can anyone relate to this? Yeah, and you start to feel like you're crazy because every time you eat broccoli, you've got a chronic stomach issue. And it's like there's nothing wrong with broccoli. What's happening is your body is reacting to it. It was something that I mentioned earlier called leaky gut. And so when you look at inflammation, it's really about trying to fight the inflammation, but fighting that bad inflammation, right? Getting your immune system back to where it should be. And so I talk a lot about this in my book. It's really, putting in those clean, whole, one-ingredient foods. That's really what clean eating comes down to. So when you say, what's in an avocado? An avocado. What's in an apple? An apple. You can base your entire day, all your meals, all your snacks, around these one-ingredient foods. I mean, I'm living proof. I've done it for 10 years. But it's hard, right? You have your condiments are full of sugar and all these high fructose corn syrup and all these different ingredients, all these dyes we can't pronounce. And so when you start to look at your food, you can really start to eliminate a lot of these things. And I know it's really, you open up your pantry, and I know it can be so you feel bombarded because you're like, what am I supposed to do? Just get rid of all of this? Just start very small. My best advice is start with your condiments. It sounds very weird, but it makes it not overwhelming. You get rid of all the condiments on your door, you will learn how to create flavor in your mouth like there is no other. And I have a whole section dedicated to this in my book because when you stop using that refined table salt, which is highly inflammatory, and that jar of pepper that's sitting on your desk, and you start to use freshly ground black pepper, and you use sea salt, and you use some of these great herbs and spices, you start to activate these taste buds, and you start to get really acclimated to what real taste is. And then you go back to, say, looking at that Diet Coke, and you're like, how did I ever drink that? Now it looks like a bottle of chemicals. Has anyone gotten there? Or with gum, you used to chew sugarless gum, and now you're like, how did I ever do that? So you can do it. You just train your body, and you stop listening to all the noise out there, to everyone telling you to be paleo, vegan, this, and this, and you start listening to your body. You stop giving your power away to everyone else, and you start giving yourself power. And so that's what I learned from this last 10 years, but especially from this whole progesterone toxicity thing, because I had to tell myself, if this is going to happen to me, then I'm here to help all these other people who are putting their trust in these doctors who are wonderful. Doctors are, as I mentioned before, are incredible, and they've helped us in so many ways, but you still have to be in charge of your health. My doctor, I was on progesterone cream for 1.5 years. He checked my hormones once. He should have been checking my saliva, literally, I know, every 2 to 3 months, and not hormones in your blood. So I know it's hard and it's a full-time job, but you literally have to be your own doctor, and you need to challenge your doctor, and you need to literally say to yourself, You give them 3 months. I had just had a client from Dubai last week, and she's like, I've been working with this doctor for 6 months, and I'm not getting better. And I said, lady, you're not paying me to like sugarcoat things. You give somebody 3 months, and if you're not getting better, you move on, right? We are all very different, which is why some people, as I'm sure you all know, can cut out gluten, and they're like, oh, I'm healed. And you're like, I hate you, because it's taking me 10 years to try to figure this out. Because we're all different, right? Some of us it's on like an emotional level. Some of us it's on like a spiritual level. Some of us it's more food. And so we're all very complex and we're all very different. But at the end of the day, you have to tell yourself, like you have to be your own guru and your own doctor, not to self-diagnose. But when you see how amazing that you can feel every day, when you start tapping into your own intuition and listening to yourself and stop giving your power away to magazine advertisements and everything you're reading on social media and blogs and all this kind of stuff, you know, you're giving your power away to somebody else who does not know what's going on in your body. Soy works for some people, soy doesn't work for other people. Gluten works for some people, it doesn't work for others. So if I can give you anything today, it's really learn to take your power back and stand up for yourself. Because these doctors or these healers or these energetic people that you're working with, they're doing incredible things, right? They're working on with your body on completely different levels. But you also have to be in charge of this, because if you're going to go to these healers and do these protein powders, these supplements, or you're going to be given all these different things, everyone's going to be telling you to do something else, right? Eat grains and beans, don't eat grains and beans, be paleo. You're going to go home feeling like you're crazy, right? And so you have to know what works. For me, beans and grains doesn't really work that well. I do better with more protein and high fat. And that's me. And there's people that are the total opposite, right? So it's getting back to basics, literally learning how to work with your body. And I'm telling you, once you see how amazing your body can feel, why would you ever go back? Why would you ever go back to feeling how crappy you feel? You know, whether it's on a certain supplement or eating protein powder or whatever these things are. Start to enjoy your life and stop worrying about fearing food. Stop fearing what food can do to you and look at what food can do for you. Because honestly, as soon as I started to stop focusing on how to heal myself and do all this stuff and started to literally go within, meditate, and just start to heal my life from the inside and stop listening to what everyone else was telling me to do, I started to heal and I started to get better. And so at the end of the day, I have 5 minutes. At the end of the day, I want everyone to just check in with themselves. And for the next morning, you should be saying to yourself, what am I doing tomorrow? Is it a tonic or is it a toxin? Every night. I don't care if it's your mother-in-law who wants you to come over or your husband who wants you to do this or your kids or that. You have to put yourself first. And it sounds selfish, but if you don't take care of you, no one else will. And that is exactly what I learned from this last huge, huge debacle that I went through. And honestly, if you ask yourself that question every night, you will start to cut things out and you will find more time for you and you will find that your body will start to heal. And just giving yourself quiet time and alone time, turn the computer off, turn Facebook off, turn all these things off. Who cares if your friends aren't, liking your photos or whatever, right? Focus on you, because when your health goes down, those people aren't going to worry about you. I've been there, right? Okay, that's it. I went on a tangent a little bit at the end. So, can I take any questions from anyone? Oh, okay. Right in front of you, I think.
Okay. Oh, hello? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I know that I don't have any replicate of the methylation gene, but I know my daughter has one. So is it a problem if one has one, or it's a problem when there are two?
So kids with autism have two, but 30% of the population is missing one. So you just need a methylated folate and a methylated B12. You can't take regular folate or regular B12. So she would need to go to a functional medicine doctor and get and talk to them about different supplementation. Yeah.
I thought I saw. Okay, there we go.
What's the test that you ask for the methylation gene
Yep.
testing?
So literally, I dedicated 4 pages in the back of my book to every functional medicine test. I often say it's worth like $100,000 because I've spent so much money. But every functional medicine test, from hormones to Lyme disease to heavy metals to mold, everything is in the MTHFR. There's a huge description of MTHFR in that back section, but also in the intro. that just breaks it down. It's very complicated, but I tried to put it, I worked with Mark Hyman, who I'm sure a lot of people know. Yeah, so we tried to, like, I was like, let's break this down for people so that they get it, like, on a very basic level. Yeah, sure. Did everybody learn something? Did you guys have fun?
Okay, any other questions here for Amie?
One more.
Okay, heading over your way here. Just 1 second.
You did mention at one point that you were dating through this whole process.
Yeah.
And when it becomes years and years of your life that you're like focusing on
Totally.
health and things like that, and but it's nice to try to expand social network and the like. I was just wondering how you've handled dating while going through your journey.
That's a good question. So I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 10 years. I could if I wanted to, but my liver enzymes were like in the 300s and normal is like 30. So like I've been through too much to even think about that. So I literally, you either meet a guy at a bar for a seltzer, like, and you have a seltzer and he has a drink, or you say, I don't drink, let's meet for a coffee or a tea or something, but you don't even make it part of the conversation. You just make it more about interacting, like go for a walk in the park or do something fun. I couldn't eat out at restaurants for 10 years, so I just started to be able to eat out at restaurants like 2 weeks ago, and I literally was like hysterically crying in the restaurant and had to call my mother, of course, who was hysterically crying, because you literally, here it is, you feel free. You feel free. I mean, if I can tell you, I started to be able to eat eggs 3 months ago from all this energetic work and acupuncture I've been doing, and like I sit down for breakfast every morning with like 3 poached eggs, like on top of all these vegetables with avocado, and I'm just crying. I couldn't eat fat for 10 years. I couldn't eat, like, it's like, and there's people that are like, don't eat eggs for cholesterol, don't eat avocado. It's like, you know what? You have to do it feels amazing to me to eat it. So you just have to do what works for you. But in terms of social, I mean, there's so many things you can do instead of going out to eat. Is that what you're talking about? More eating out and drinking? No, talking, how to talk. Okay, so here it is. This is, okay, so I'm doing, I actually had to miss today. I'm starting to do this huge training that's 6 months, and it's, I'll be talking about it more in my next book, but it talks about focusing in here. Because I have to be honest, I never believed this stuff. I mean, I thought it was all hocus pocus. I thought it was crazy, and probably a lot of you will. But until you love yourself, no, you can never expect someone to love you. Because even if you're married, or like one healer said this to me, he's like, what is it? You have a boyfriend, you get married, whatever, they can still leave you. You have to love yourself so much. And in the class yesterday, the guy that was up there talking, the teacher, he said, I'm in a relationship and it's awesome, I'm completely fulfilled, but if he leaves me tomorrow, I'm okay. You have to love yourself. And I know this is hard. Again, I'm creating a program on my website right now for this, but the easiest thing you do is look up Satnam Kaur. It's beautiful music, Satnumkaur. It's like the music will make you cry. So it's like emotional release. So we don't realize a lot of our emotions are stored in our bodies and our tissues. And so you just sit there in Indian style. I'm not saying anybody has to meditate, but you put your hands over your heart, and you just sit there and listen to the music and cry and let it, like, and you just tell yourself. The one thing I had to do, actually, what my healer had told me to do, you put your hand over your heart and you say, like, I love you, Amie, I'm never going to leave you. And in the beginning, I was like, I love you, Amie, I'm never going to leave you. She's like, that's not going to work. And I was like, I hate this. Like, this is terrible. But now I literally, like, last night I was doing it and I was crying and I was like, what is this? Like, things start to shift, right? It's like energy. And again, going really quick back to like the energy work that's really helped me. I never believed in acupuncture, Reiki, any of this energy work, but someone said something to me once that really struck a chord, and it's an easy way to explain energy work. When you go to the hospital, when you go to the emergency room, and they're trying to read, what do? They put it on an EKG, right? What are they reading? Your energy. So guess what? We're all energy. And it has nothing to do with, this is the other reason I learned with the progesterone toxicity, it has nothing to do with your weight. It has nothing to do with what's going on in your life. It's your energy. It is all it is. And so when you love yourself and you are so strong in that, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a million people in the world talking about clean eating and doing all food stuff. If every day I was like, oh my God, I'm not good enough. It's like, there's room for everyone. And like Andrea Beeman, who was just up here, is incredible. Like, she's another beautiful human being. Like, you just start to support all these incredible other women and people who are doing great things. And your whole network and world just expands. I know it sounds crazy, but when you start in here, you'll see your whole world will change. Everything will start to shift. Just start very basic, because if you're going to start with like mantras and all these affirmations in the mirror, you're going to, but a good book, I must say, a good book is Louise Hay, How to Heal Your Life. Very first book, I pretty much broke down in tears, because you start to realize we've all got all this stuff from childhood, and even though I had an amazing childhood, or here's the thing, like in these books they talk about you and your sister are having like an ice cream cone when you're 5 and your mother takes the ice cream cone away from you and your sister gets to eat hers. Guess what? That's a trauma for you. Guess where that gets stored? In here. So even if you have the perfect childhood, you got a bunch of junk still in there, and you've got to get it out, and you've got to start loving yourself. So
Okay.
Louise Hay, How to Heal Your Life.
We have time for just one more question here because we want to give Amie some time for her book signing. So anybody else who we don't get to, I apologize, but Amie will be around if you need to chat with her a little bit more. So I'm going to head right over here for our last question, and then Amie will be signing books right over there in the corner.
Actually, it's 2 questions, but the first one's really quick. You mentioned, you just mentioned some music that you,
Yeah,
can you
so,
say that again?
Of course. It's Satnam Kaur, S-A-T-N-U-M.
S-A-T.
N-U-M, space K-A-U-R. It's absolutely, if whoever listens to it, you need to email me. Just go to my contact page and say, I listened to it, I'm dying, because I will respond back.
All right, great.
But it's just soothing, calming. I make my mother listen to it, not make her, but she's like addicted to it now. But it's a Kundalini yoga. It's
Okay.
like a lot of like just very, yeah.
All right.
And also, get out of your black clothes and start wearing white. I'll tell you right now, your whole energetic vibration will change. I was going to wear white pants today, and then they told me not to wear all white at the last minute at 7 a.m. this morning. I was like, oh my God, I have to wear something black. But I'm usually in all white. Like, you have to raise your kind of vibration. Put yourself in black clothes one day and then wear all white the next day. I guarantee your energy will shift. Yeah, people that are depressed, usually when you wear white, you glow. It's your aura. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about your health journey and your story, and I heard you going through the list of things that it wasn't cancer, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, and I did hear you say it was Lyme, but what was,
Yeah.
do you know, because I think about you sitting at that chair and swelling, did you figure out what the core of your health issues?
Yeah, so it really came down to detox, which is what this was all about, because I was whether it was Lyme or not, it was about detox. My liver was, like I said, my liver enzymes were like 350, I think. Normal's like 38 or something. I mean, I was so insanely toxic, and just from everything. And so a lot of us with this MTHFR gene were not methylating and detoxing daily. So again, yeah, the Lyme, but killing off the Lyme was a huge detox. Things like biofilm, there's like, candida, things that you really have to kill off, aside from everyday chemicals. Yeah, of course. Okay, good. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.